In this video, I want to show you how I like to extract knowledge and learn from a non-fiction book using an LLM. The great thing about this is you can give the LLM your background and experience so that it knows how it can personalize the summarized knowledge from each chapter of the book. Even better, an LLM is conversational, so like a tutor, you can ask it specifically for clarification where you don't understand something so that you can get the full understanding of a book quickly. That's important. Quickly. We can make this as quick as possible because we can make the LLM summarized contents and personalize them according to our experience. To do that, you will need the book in an electronic format, ideally a PDF. If you buy an ebook online, you can convert pretty much all of the formats, EPUB for example, to a PDF so that it's LLM friendly. A large language model has naturally read a lot of books and understands their contents, but it also hasn't read many books. In many cases, it might understand the concepts of a book from summaries, comments, reviews of that book. And it can fake that it understands the inner workings of the book and understands it fully. So it's important that we have to build Retrieval-Augmented Generation with the actual book and ground the model and tell it that it can only use the knowledge from the book and the document we provided. This way we're sure that we're getting the actual knowledge and not something hallucinated based on reviews and summaries of the book. Okay, let's begin. For the example, I'll be using the C programming language by Brian Kernighan and Dennis Ritchie. This is a very old book. It's actually available widely. I believe it's even free now, at least the first edition. So the LLM has a very good understanding of it and its contents. And this is just an example because it's simplified. I know an example questions for clarifications that I can ask. And it's a relatively average nonfiction book about programming. So it's a good example. This is a PDF file. It has a table of contents and the entire book contents, basically, as it is. Nothing special. So we'll be using that as an example. And we'll be building a C programming language tutor tailored to my programming experience. I'm a developer. I have experience with many other programming languages. I actually have experience with C too, but I will pretend I don't, that I know TypeScript, Rust, Go, etc. This is the case where an LLM can be very useful. For example, if you're learning a new programming language from a book, you would understand all of the concepts. You just need the most important language specifics and some details about the language which you cannot know about syntaxes, etc. And that's the case with many nonfiction books. They're written very broadly for a broad audience. It's most likely not necessary to read the entire book depending on your experience. So we have a couple of options here. We can go the free route with a local or remote free model, or the paid route, which will be better models from Claude or OpenAI. Now, for this example, at this point in time, because models are constantly evolving, my favorite models are from Claude, specifically Sonnet 4, and I have a Claude Pro subscription, so I'll be showing you an example with Anthropic Claude and the Anthropic projects, which allow me to create a rack for this. OpenAI has similar functionality called custom GPTs, or you can even use the OpenAI platform, where you can also build an agent assistant here in the playground with knowledge base, which is just a vector database that retrieves data, which is our book in that case. It doesn't matter which platform you use. What we'll be implementing is similar. We'll just be uploading the book as a file and giving a system prompt to ground the model and give it some rules about how to behave. So I'll show you Claude as one paid option. Other paid options like OpenAI, Google, or DeepSeek if you want Quen, whatever, would be similar in terms of user interface and interaction. And then also show you two free options with Ollama and OpenRouter with OpenWebUI. So let's start. We'll begin by crafting a prompt. We need a system prompt for this project. I already experimented here, so I will just archive this. In Cloud, what we want to create is called a project. As I mentioned, ChatGPT, OpenAI has a similar thing. It's called a custom GPT. But the project is just a pre-configured LLM agent with knowledge, additional knowledge. So I'll create a project and call it C programming language tutor. Okay. I just add a simple title and description. I create the project. And here's what we get. The UI will be similar in other basically platforms like OpenAI, but you have three main things. A way to add a system prompt. In this case, this is called project instructions. This is the prompt which Cloud and any model will use when asking the question, who am I? And you need to tell it exactly what you want it to be and how you want it to act and respond. We'll see how we can craft this prompt and a knowledge base of files. In this case, this will be our book, and I'll add it immediately. I have it right here as a PDF. We add the book. While it's uploading, let's talk about the prompt. I actually like to generate the prompt with AI. And the prompt, a couple of important things about it is it has to outline, I would recommend this structure. It has to outline the context of what you're trying to do, instructions about what, yeah, I should actually do, some rules, and it's best if you give an example. An example increases the quality of your output greatly. And I am making this prompt with ChatGPT actually, and I already did that. I asked it to create a prompt for a tutor, exactly what I want on the C programming language, and I give it the structure of the prompt. I give it roughly the context, who am I, and what experience I have. We're talking about experience related to the book and nonfiction content you're learning. In this case, this is a book about the C programming language. So I tell it that I'm a software developer, I have a bachelor's in computer science. This is important because I understand basic concepts. And I have experience in these programming languages because it can give me examples from them as well. Tell it what you want to achieve. I want to learn C in an efficient manner. This is important. And I also give it the context that I'll provide the C programming language book as a knowledge article, as a knowledge context. I give it instructions. Now, the instructions are that you want the language model to be your professional tutor on that book. This gives interactivity. We want it to guide us through chapters one by one and basically just tell it next or clarify this a little bit more. This way, I find it very enjoyable to actually just go through the book in a timeline fashion, chapter by chapter. Just get a brief introduction of the most important things and drill down if you need on concepts you don't understand. And that's exactly what I explained here, that I want the most important information concisely. I emphasize a couple of times that I want short summaries. And I will guide this. I will tell it to go to the next chapter or ask for clarification. And the point is to extract the knowledge from the book, tailored to my experience in the most professional manner possible. A couple of rules, that's extremely important. I want the LLM to use only the book. This works very well, telling it that the book is canon and no external sources are allowed. And I give it this escape hatch. Always warn if any external knowledge is used for clarification, because sometimes you might ask a question that's reasonable. And it might not be able to answer that question in the best way possible, that clarification, only using the contents from the book. even though it's a conversational model. Or in the book, there might be something outdated, which is not correct. That's not unheard of. Even that book, the C programming language, has outdated things in it, outdated concepts, which might need clarification. And in that case, I give it an escape hatch to use external knowledge, but always warn me that it has used it and why. And this is basically the rough prompt I give to ChatGPT in order to create an actual prompt. And it gives me a prompt, which is quite good, a little bit on the longer side. Something important which I learned is that the reasoning capability and understanding and the quality of output goes down as the prompt becomes longer. So ideally, you want shorter prompts that are very efficiently written. So we'll shorten that a bit, but it gives the context, just expand it a bit, instructions for the model, the same instructions I gave it with a couple of additional items which are good, and the rules in an even better form. It also gave an example, which is a little bit on the wrong side, but that's okay with me. And it understands my idea as at the end it asks if I want to continue to the next section or ask clarification. So I will copy that. This is my prompt. The book is already uploaded. As you can see, some of these, some of the platforms like Claude have some limits when it comes to the context length. So this book is almost the full capacity. And it's not that long. It's 200 pages, but very concisely written pages. So it depends on your usage. In some cases, you might not be able to use Claude. There are other solutions for RAG which don't have a limit. And you can use OpenAI, you can use OpenWebUI with Claude. I'll show you later more about that. So we have the book, and now we paste the prompt. Here, I need to clean it up a bit from the title. We can leave the markdown formatting, that's okay. Language models work well with markdown. And as I mentioned, we'll shorten this a bit. You're a professional tutor is fine. Senior developer. Deep understanding, this is fluff. Yeah, the programming languages are important. This is not that important. It's strong understanding, fundamentals. This is implicitly implied with bachelor's in computer science, and the model will understand. And this is great because it clarifies what I'm trying to achieve. And now the instructions. We have actually here, we can delete context and instructions headlines because that's clear to the model by the actual text. And I won't shorten these. I will leave the rules headline because it's important it understands that these are exactly rules and not something else. And this is the example. So I'll save the instructions as we generated them. And now I'm ready to use my tutor. The way I use it is I usually say, let's start. So what the model is doing now is using the vector database in the backend to retrieve the most important information related to your prompt from the book and feed it to the actual model together with your prompt, which is just let's start at this point. And together with the context and the system prompt we gave it, it starts to guide us through the book. And it begins with chapter 1.1, getting started. And it gives me key concepts, examples, notes, and gotchas. Because I specifically told it that I want specific notes for C and gotchas. Depending on the book, you might give it other ideas. You might be, for example, going through a book about, I don't know, cooking professionally. And you might have experience in other fields like woodworking. And you can specifically prompt the AI about your experience, and it can give you useful analogies with what you have experience with and what you're learning to bridge that gap. That's what it's great at, conversation. And as you can see at the end, it asks me, do you want to continue or do you have questions? One note here. Claude Sonnet and these paid models are usually very good, and they have bigger context and they're quite intelligent. But it's always great to have the book open also, because at least the table of contents, because sometimes it can get lost and sort of lose the thread of where it is, and mess up chapters. So just keep that in mind, and sometimes just check the table of contents and where you're at while you're going through this tutorial, basically. So here I can ask a clarifying question. For example, let's say I saw this and I was wondering why the brackets in the include statement. So why is in brackets and not? This is exactly what I would usually do if I'm learning something new, and I would wonder right here. If I have experience in other programming languages, it might seem strange. And I ask Sonnet, and it will clarify using the book as reference. The book explains this distinction clearly. And we get that this is forwards in the book, but I just noticed it before moving on to the next chapter. And when I'm done, I can just say, move on to the next section, or move on or next. It will usually understand and move on to the next chapter. And this way, you can go through a book very quickly. Now, this is quite long. Usually, the length of this is quite is dependent on the system prompt. Right now, this is a little bit too long for my liking, even though I believe specifically for programming languages, that's probably the bare minimum: key concepts, example, and specific gotchas. But in some cases, in most cases with nonfiction books, I'm not really learning programming, so I would want very short summaries. And you can configure that in the system prompt. It's always great to give it a specific example, because here we basically determine how the AI will behave best. If you give it a very short example and clarify that you want concise answers, you can even give some word limit, uh, recommended word response length. It will respect that. And that's how you can go through the book. Now, and that's all great, but this is a paid model. So you need at least the Pro plan, you need a GPT Plus plan to create a custom GPT right here, or you can use the platform.openai.com, the OpenAI platform, to pay per token. And all of these solutions are paid. Of course, it will not cost you a lot to run such an assistant, even with the with if you already have a plus or a paid subscription in Cloud, ChatGPT, you can do that. Here on per token basis, you won't use a lot of tokens, and you don't need the smartest models for this task. We're basically using just the conversational retrieval. So a 4.0 mini module, or 4 mini, sorry, will be just fine for most books, as the knowledge is already there. We just need an efficient presentation of the textual content. With that in mind, we also have free options, which many of you might want to explore. The classic free option is to run a model locally, but I would say that could be a fallback option. There's an even better option than that. We can use OpenRouter. And that's an API that is OpenAI compatible. It's remote and it has free models. If you just sign in and create an account without buying credits and anything, you can access some free models with usage limits, but absolutely free models, which are not bad at all. If we filter, for example, the Quen models, you even have some of the very large Qwen models like, let me show you, Qwen 3. Sorry, let me go to pricing auto high. Filter by Qwen 3 specifically, and you can even access the Qwen 3 235 billion parameter model for free. For this specific use case, you don't even need that sophisticated of a model, and you have other options here like DeepSeek R1 for free and others. So you can just access this model by generating an API key and using it. I'll show you where in a second. For free, basically, with some usage limits that increase if you buy a couple of credits. I can show you the usage limits right now. There we go. I believe, yeah, the free usage limit is 20 requests per minute, and you had additional limits though. Yeah, 50 free model requests per day. But if you buy 10 credits once, I believe, you have 1,000 free requests per day, which is awesome. That's really a great deal. And to use that, of course, it's just an API. We need a user interface. And the best thing for the job right now that is free is OpenWebUI, which we can install easily. OpenWebUI is very similar to OpenAI's platform. It has a lot of features, including RAG, which we need, and custom agents. And here to install it, the two easy options are if you have Python, just pip install and then serve it. And the recommended option, of course, is just Docker container. And you can select, depending on if you have an NVIDIA GPU, if you want to use it with Ollama and you have it on your computer or on a different server, you can choose a different Docker run command and just run it out of the box. I have Python here, so I've just installed it with pip install OpenWebUI, and I can start it with OpenWebUI Surf. You can have a service started on startup. If it's a Docker container, you can make it auto start when your computer starts. And it's a web application, so when it loads, you can just open it at localhost 8080. The first time you started, you create your account, and you can see a very familiar user interface to OpenAI's platform Playground. And it has a lot of features. So here we can actually use the OpenRouter models. If we go to settings and let me see, connections, I believe. No, wait. It was different settings. Admin panel, maybe? Settings? Yes. Admin panel settings. And here we had connections. And you want an OpenAI connection. Here the OpenAI API will be set. You can set it to OpenRouter after you create an API key from here. And then you copy your API key and add it right here. And now the models will be loaded. The OpenRouter models will be loaded here if you attempt to do a chat. Okay, but we don't just want to chat, we want to create the same agent as we did here in projects. So to do so, I'll make my life easier. I'll copy my system prompt. I want the same prompt, except I'll modify a little bit the knowledge part. Let me close some of the tabs. So to create the agent here, we need a workspace. And going to workspace, we need to first add the knowledge. Here we don't add the file specifically in the project model or whatever it's called. We add the knowledge first. And I'll call it C programming language book and describe it as a book used for C tutoring agents. I don't know if this is used, this description specifically. It might be. Haven't researched that, but in my experience, it's not that important. So I'll add the book here. The good thing is with OpenWeb UI, you don't seem to have limits to the context as you're running the rack vector database on your local machine. So that's great. Now, while this is uploading, it did already. I'll go to models, and here model is equivalent to the Claude project or a custom GPT in OpenAI's ChatGPT. So I'll create a new model here. I'll call it C Programming Language Tutor. We can select a base model. So let's use Qwen 3, if I can find it. Here are the Qwen models, some of the Qwen models. There are a lot of them, which makes it a little bit hard to find the right one. Okay, they're at the top. Qwen 3, 235 billion free. That took a while. I'll just copy the items from here, including the description. This is visibility. If you want to share it with other people, you can of course share the project here in Cloud as well. And I'll copy the system prompt. Now let's give it the system prompt here. And now we need to select the knowledge. And we select that collection. Here in the system prompts, we have the following. The full PDF of the book will be uploaded in the Cloud project. Let's say in the knowledge base as rack context. There we go. And everything else stays the same. We don't need vision, file upload. Even if you leave them, it's fine. Web search could harm a bit, maybe, because we wanted to stick to knowledge from the book. But I'll leave code interpreter in this case. And now we create our model, custom model. And I can click on it to chat with it. And I can say, let's start. I should get a very similar behavior. Let me see. I got a 401. Okay, I updated my API key. Maybe it was expired and now it's thinking. As this is a thinking model, we need to wait a bit. Free models in OpenRouter might be a little bit smaller, but that's okay. Okay, after thinking, it pretty much gave us the same response. Almost the same response as Claude. A little bit more concise, maybe missing one or two things, more or less a similar thing. And that is great. You want that. If you make a good prompt and ground the model well, it should behave similarly, very similarly with different language models, because here we are aiming for accuracy of knowledge and knowledge extraction and retrieval. That is personalized to you. Okay, now let's see how to do it completely free and unlimited with a local model. To run a model locally, you have a couple of options. But the easiest option is perhaps Ollama. You can just download it for all operating systems, Mac, Linux, and Windows. It installs easily. On Mac, for example, you just have this application that you start right here after you install it, and it's running. And now you can just pull a model in your terminal. This is the terminal where I started OpenWeb UI. If I open a new tab and type Ollama, I get available commands and we can just run any of the models. Here are the available models. How do you choose one? Well, you can research which models, which of the free models are good. I like LM Arena, for example. Here, humans rate AI responses. And if we go to leaderboard, we can basically filter by different divisions, text, vision, categories, sorry. And here you see that most of the top models are proprietary, but here and there we have free models like DeepSeek. And we even have smaller models like Gemma 3, 27 billion, which is rated quite high at 21st place. And I will use the same Qwen 3 model because I just have it locally. And I have quite a small model here in terms of parameter sizes from the Qwen models. What you'll notice if you haven't run models locally is that Qwen 3, for example, which is Alibaba's open source model, has a couple of versions. with different parameter sizes. The bigger the parameter size, the better reasoning you get out of the model, better understanding. Now, the downside of parameters is that these large models you cannot run on a normal GPU or CPU or basically in your memory. You need a sufficient amount of memory to run these models. And this is this is my laptop basically, which has 8 gigabytes of RAM and an M2. It's an M2 MacBook. So I cannot run a very large model. In a normal environment, you could run up to 32 billion models easily on a single GPU. And if you load it on your GPU, it will be fast. But for this example, as I said, I'm running a very low-powered model, and I use 0.34 billion, which is pretty much the max I can squeeze out of this very basic computer. But that's great because we can see that even with that model, it's fine for basic knowledge extraction. And I have it here in OpenWebUI. It automatically detects that Ollama is running. It automatically detects that I have this model pulled, and I pulled it basically using the Ollama run command here. You just copy it, go in your terminal and paste it, sorry. And the first time you run a model, it will download the model weights, which is just a file with data, a couple of gigabytes usually. And now I can ask it a question. OpenWebUI automatically detects that Ollama is available and the models are right here. So I can open it. More specifically, I can go to our C programming language model, edit its settings, workspace, edit it, and choose the Qwen 3 model I have locally as its base. I don't believe we had we have a save button on the bottom, and now we can use the same tutor but with a model running locally. And I can say let's start, and I should get a similar response. Let's see. So here's the response. It was actually quite faster. I thought for 20 seconds only, and I get pretty similar responses. As you can see, the model complexity and the number of parameters and how smart it is not that important in this case. We're using it for knowledge retrieval. Now, if you start drilling and asking questions about complicated material, the intelligence of the model will be important. But in this case, we're asking it to be a C programming language tutor. So this is general knowledge, very widely known for ages, and there's a lot of knowledge around that. So any even not very smart model that's running locally does very well for this case. And because we made a good system prompt, we get very similar responses between different models and platforms, which is a good indication that our prompt was well crafted. So as you can see, the free model running locally with 4 billion parameters returns a very similar content and structure to Cloud4 Sonnet. So this is my method for extracting knowledge from nonfiction books. I really enjoy learning like this and just exploring books. Sometimes I don't want to learn in that kind of very structured manner. I would just ask the agent to summarize the most important points of the book in a single prompt, and I now drill down towards 1 or 2 points which I am very interested in, and that's really interesting to me. And it's like having your own personalized specialist tutor, or like you're chatting with the author of the book. Of course, a very cheap alternative to that, because an author of the book would be much more rich of an experience. He'll give you a lot more context and information that you cannot possibly learn. But this is just a cheap alternative to a tutor that's specialized in something. And the best thing about it is it doesn't matter. You can run it with no cost. You can run it with a subscription in Cloud, OpenAI. It's basically low barrier to entry. Anyone can do this. You just need to buy an ebook or get a free ebook. Some books are old enough so that they're available widely online, and you can just learn. which is awesome. If you enjoy the content, you can go ahead and subscribe. I make regular videos like these, and I try to make them useful, short, and concise. Take care.